Welcome to Wagons of Steel. It's a party and everyone's invited. Today I'm going to show you how I make my Wagons of Steel calendar, the famous. Here's last year's with my friend Peter Dow's car on the front of it. This will be the 29th calendar since I started making them, and the thing that makes them unique is that they are they're really handmade. They're like it's all goes through a copy machine eventually. There's almost no computer stuff in them at all. Well, to start making your calendar, when I start making my calendar, I have, it's do it yourself, so I don't have, a lot of super fancy tools, but you gotta have some tools. And here are the basics. First off, you gotta have a 30-year-old can of malt liquor, just to remind you of where you've been. I like to have a couple different kinds of Sharpies. I use the fine point one for, writing the little bits of text on there. And I like to have some relatively new regular old Sharpies, like the way our president signs his name. And can of spray adhesive, gotta have that. And scissors, and here's something, this is maybe the most important thing to have, is a calendar from the date that you're doing. This is the 2021 calendar. This is a beautiful calendar, pretty much the opposite of what I do. I used to print their t-shirts for them, so they keep me on their list of sending me these beautiful calendars every year. And the reason you got to have a current calendar, or a calendar of next year, the year you're going to use, is so you get the grids right. There's a lot of flash here, it's hard to see with the glossy pages. But when you're making the calendar, I may actually get through this one without making actual mistakes, because when you start drawing out the grids, the calendar, actually I've already started to do them here. Here's January, and here's January. So the first thing I look at is, where does it start and where does it end? This year, January starts on a Friday and it ends on a Sunday, and so then you can decide how you're going to make the grid work. So what I did here was I put the two squares for Friday and Saturday up at the top, first and second. And then I did a little diagonal down here, so this is the 31st. And then, but there's different ways you could do it. But if you know what you're up against, that helps you make a plan. And, this is really quick and dirty. You'll see, I'll show you. But it's you need to know what's going on, otherwise you will make mistakes. And I'll be counting along, count up to 32, or there's all kinds of mistakes. You'll learn mistakes that I don't even know about, but just to have a sense of humor about it, and try and if you get too discouraged on a page, just throw it away and start over again. That's the beauty of making calendars like this. Okay. Here we go. Here's another tool that I always have that I forgot to tell you about. Ruler. And I don't draw this stuff out with the ruler. I more just make indications of what I'm going to do. And, there's different ways of doing this. I'm just showing you the way I do it. The calendars, the squares on my calendars are always 1.5 inches, because 1.5 inches square fits nicely onto an 8.5 by 11 calendar. So, okay, so we're starting off with July here. Oh, it's hard to see. July starts on a Thursday and ends on a Saturday. So that means we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 complete weeks all in a lineup, so there's no notches or anything to forget about at the end here. And then it starts 3 days in. So I'll have one shorter line on the top, and the rest of them are all go straight through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. The top one starts on Thursday. And you'll see the method to my madness in just a second here. Now I'm just making these little marks because I'm not going to use a ruler to draw out the lines. That's not to say you shouldn't. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways of doing this. There are many ways to skin the cat. And I'm a professional artist, so don't try this at home, kids. Okay. An old drunk art teacher of mine a long time ago told me, if you're gonna draw with a ruler, and that we were drawing houses at that particular time. We were going out to the neighborhood and drawing all the houses in the neighborhood while he was drinking whiskey out of his coffee thermos. He used to have us draw his lunch too, but that's a story for another time. If you had that teacher, you know who I'm talking about. So basically, if you're going to draw with a ruler, then draw with a ruler. If you're going to draw freehand, draw freehand, and don't do both, because it's almost like, it's almost like plaid and polka dots. They clash with each other. But since I do all freehand, it all looks good freehand. And you can see I don't really care if the lines are straight. I put the little pencil marks in so that they'll be approximate squares. Although sometimes I put in like psychedelic months where stuff really doesn't look right. Personally, I like to have the numbers correct so that you can actually use the calendar for something. But that's up to you. You may decide that you want to make a calendar only for yourself, in which case, yeah, some of this stuff won't be necessary because you can just make a one-off, which would make a really cool present too. Okay, so here we have, this is the grid of what July of 2021 is going to look like, and I know I have it right. It's important to check in on that a lot, like go over and like make sure that you're getting it right, and that's why I like to have the original calendar so that I can, check on it and make sure I'm not making any huge mistakes in anything. Then I'll write in the days. I get this wrong sometimes. The worst is when you get something wrong right at the very end. You've done everything and then you misspell something, or you get a day wrong, or whatever. Got my fine Sharpie. Word to the wise: hide these. At least hide a couple, because people borrow these and then they use them to all kinds of horrible things. And they're really nice pens, but they don't. If you leave them all, there's all kinds of ways to destroy their value. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, now I'm putting the numbers on. You put them in any corner you want. Then, you could probably generate numbers and names on your computer and print them out and glue them down. Now, I've heard it said that the human beings actually cannot multitask, and if ever there's proof of that, this is it. 18. yeah, the phone will ring and you'll go from 20 to 22. Somebody will start talking to you. You'll think about something, and then you'll go from Thursday to Saturday. And then you'll get everything in. It'll all be glued down in place, and you'll realize, oh, man, I got that. Oh. 31. And lo and behold, there are 31 days in July. Yay! And the last thing I want to do is I always put the full moon in, because I like to have full moon in my calendar. And there's a nice spot there for July, because you can put July. I'll do that right now. I'll get my Sharpie. And voila, we have the grid for July done. Okay, I finished all the grids. Here they are. Ooh. Now, all I did was I put the days of the week and the numbers of the days and the full moons on there. And I have them, more or less labeled. Now here's where the construction part of it comes, especially if you're going to mass produce a calendar. Now here's the original calendar, and it's got the staples on the ridge here, and all calendars are 7 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can deconstruct them. I'm not going to take this one apart yet because I'm using it. But if you do, then you'll get the template of what it's supposed to look like. And this is where stuff gets semi-tricky. Like if you look at this front page, for example, you can kind of see there's the inside of the front, and then there's an inside of the front, and then on the back is December. And then on the other, the next one is December. On the back of that is November. And up on the other side is January. And it looks really tricky, but there's only one way for it to go together. So with a little bit of patience, if you're assembling it yourself or if you're printing it yourself, you can figure it out. If this is the first time you've done it, or the 29th time you've done it, I like to put together a model of how it's really supposed to look so that I don't get the pages wrong. Because if you get the pages right, if you print them right, after you've gone through it and you've made sure that everything is correct, then you can get them mixed up and shuffled. And with a little patience, like I say, you can always put them together because there's only one way for them to go together. If you've got the picture from January facing the picture from November, obviously it's not right. So you got to flip stuff around, and eventually you'll see what it's all about. I used to have like a party, an assembly party, and would lay them all out on the table here, and we'd just walk around. And then I've got this fancy stapler here, and you can staple big things in there. So that's how I would staple the calendars. But now I'm my friend David Hinchman at Vashon Copy and Design. He does everything, and basically everything now is pushing the button on a really nice copier like he has, and bada bing, bada boom, out they come. So now, when I start making my calendar, I'll show it to you here. I first thing I do is I make each page look like it's supposed to look when the calendar is open. So basically, sorry to be so jiggly here. What I do is I glue each page to the bottom of each grid to the bottom of a piece of 11 by 17. I have a hard time with my camera here. And then I'll have a whole, so I'll have a pile of 12 of these 11 by 17 pages with the calendar grid on the bottom of them. And then when I have all of those done, I'll go through and you can see I got a pile of photographs here that I use. You know, I've got all kinds of art that I use. Every year it's different, obviously. And so, you see I've got some pictures here. And I went and made them black and white already, so I haven't decided yet. I'll put all the grids down, and then I'll decide which pictures go for which month. And that way, I kind of get an idea of what the page is going to look like. And then, like, this month, January fit there, so I don't have to worry about it. But some months, like, the grid will be, like here, the December one, it kind of fills up the grid. So I'll probably, like, if this was December, I mean, you'll see when I get it done, because you're on the bottom floor of this one. I could write December in here or up here. So basically, what it is, I like to put the calendar together as 12 pages, and then eventually, and I'll show you this, I'll cut and paste the 7. I don't know what you call them, masters or galleys or something. As a professional printer, I should know these terms, but I don't. So next up, I will glue the pages together, and then I'll show you some other cool stuff. We'll pick out the pictures that go on which one. Okay, here we go. I got this sweet dog picture I'm going to use for January. And what I do, I cut the edges off. See, on these ones, it's exactly the same size. You know, it's 11 by 17. Half of 11 by 17 is 8.5 by 11. So you know, they go straight down. These ones I like to do a little, bring them in from the edge. Again, I don't have the printing terminology for how you say that. Got my spray adhesive. I love Super 77. I use it for everything. It's total overkill for this job. There are artist materials that are way better suited, but I'm Mr. Overkill. Okay, so I've got these. Can you see what I got going on here? Okay. So what I do then is draw around the edge. And it makes it look like I meant to do it. I don't know. I don't know why I do it, but I do. It kind of makes it match the hand-drawn grid down below. And I've got the edges I just cut with scissors. They're not perfect, but it makes it all match up, kind of, in the spirit of what I was talking about before. You don't want a whole bunch of straight lines when it's all free-handed. And so there is January. Okay, and I'll put that on the pile, and I'll do that with all my months. And then I'll start slicing and dicing and making it into a calendar that can be, into a form that can be copied. And I still got to come up with the cover and a bunch of other stuff. It's, you know, even after all these years of doing this, it takes a little bit of time. I'm getting better, but, you know, my advice, if you're doing it yourself, is just be patient and make sure you got the right days of the week up, and that none of the months are longer than 31 days. Okay, now I've got a lot done on this now. Here's what the front cover is going to look like, and now these are all glued onto 11 by 17, so you can't really fold them over yet, but you kind of like this, you get an idea of what it's going to look like. Put my friend Peter's car on the cover. Now the cover sells the calendar, but you look at the calendar the cover when you buy it, and then that's the end of that. And I always, I use my old calendar as reference for the new one. So they kind of, once you get started on these things, they build momentum of their own. So here's it's going backwards, December, and then November, dog in there, October, and you just keep looking through it, and you'll keep seeing stuff that you need to do. I've got my eraser here, and I don't want them on. Here he is. And so I'll see stuff like, I don't need that in there anymore, so erase out what I don't need, and always keep an eye on. Just keep an eye on for little mistakes. Just constantly proofreading. All my little marks. It's another reason you want to make the marks really light. Just dark enough so you can see them and use them, but because everything has to be erased eventually, anyways. And now the final step before I start doing my assembly is I have to go through my old calendar, the last year's calendar, and I go online. I've got a website that I'm using right now, but there's lots of different websites you can use. You look up, in this case, 2021 calendar observances and dates. The one I have going right now is Holidays and Observances in the United States in 2021 from timeanddate.com. But there's a bunch of different ones that work. And start filling in the dates. Everybody can, it's up to you how you want to make your calendar. I put lots of goofy stuff in there, and I do my full moons. So I make up a lot of holidays, like throw a bad tool in the bushes, and I don't really put people's birthdays in just because I don't want to get too carried away with that. Because I do, I like putting a lot of goofy stuff in here, but I also like to leave enough room so that you can actually use it as a calendar. So if there's, dates in there that you want to, travel wherever, drag racing or whatever your program is, you got room to write stuff down in there. So I keep the writing down to sort of a minimum. And I also like to have in holidays that, so when the post office is going to be closed and when you got a Monday off and that kind of stuff. Some religious holidays, it's up to you. Whatever floats your boat. So that'll be the next step. I'll go through here and I'll write down all the dates and days, and then we'll go for final assembly. Okay, now I've got all of the masters all done up. Pretty much everything is done except I have the first inner page. Now, put it all together, but I'm going to show you a trick here. Save you some time. You don't have to learn stuff the hard way the way I did. I've said this earlier, I think. Bears repeating. A basic calendar, the way I make it, is 7 pages, front and back, when all is said and done. So what I do is I get my 7 pages out. Okay, here we go. Got 7 pages here. And I fold them lightly so they're basically in the shape of a calendar. And then with my handy dandy pencil, I can write front cover, front, and then just because I've done this before, I know how this works. Then there'll be the inside cover, inside. And I just go through, and then of course next is January, and the January grid, and then go through the whole thing. February. December falls on the last page, which is just where we want it. And so now I've got my calendar. You probably can't really see what I've got written on it because it's written really light, because it's just homework. It's not for show. So now what I have here is a road map, and you can see, like, you know, everything's labeled now. So this one has December grid there, and on the top is the inside front cover, and then inside further there's, like, you know, the November grid, December, and November is opposite of January, which is all the inside credits cover. And so when it all goes together, it makes perfect sense. But when you're putting it together, you can kind of tend to lose your way, which is why it's nice to have this all written out like this. Funny story, I had this all put together. I had it all ready to go, and I, you know, run through it a bunch of times, made sure it was perfect, and brought it to a Costco copy shop where I used to have my calendars all made. And it was a new person working there. You know, I'd gotten spoiled, and they always knew exactly what was going on, and they would just, you know, say, we'll have them ready for you in 2 days, and they would make them. Well, 2 days goes by, and I get this call from this lady who was, felt sorry for her. She was just so confused and lost, and you know, I'm trying to talk her through it on the phone, like, well, and she's like, no, this just isn't working. I'm like, you know, I know it's working. I've checked it out so many times, and I just couldn't talk to her. And finally, I just said, you know, just put it all back in the box, and I'll come and get it tomorrow. And I got it, and I went around the corner because I didn't want to humiliate her, and put it all together. I was like, yeah, this is right. She just could. It just, you know, it just. Some people, it just didn't work, and you know. Obviously, that person probably should not have been working in a print department. But so basically, the story, the moral of the story is, when you have it right, when you build yourself a master like this and you put it in right, it will go together. You can get lost, but it will go together. So now, I'm going to start putting this together. And when I'm done, I'll have it all glued together master. And I'll keep you apprised of the situation. Now, some people, you could have one side and then the other side, and then, you know, I've done it all different ways. Then you could, you know, paper clip them together. But now, with the copy shop I use on the island, my friend David Hinchman and his crew, Molly and Lori, were all brilliant. I'll just put it together as one piece, and they'll be kind of thick, and so then they can just photocopy both sides or however they want to do it. Okay, here I've just gotten started now. Here's the back, and you can see there's December, and it's easy here. We're lined up. It's the first one, so I can't mess it up bad too much right now. And this is December down below, the December grid. So I cut one of my original sheets in half and put the grid down there at the back side of the calendar, and then got to work up here. This is the picture. You can see it's on the blank piece here, and then I worked over to November, because November's above that, and I just thought I'd point out here that you know, even though the grids and the photographs don't line up anywhere except June. June is just straight up. You'll see later. But even though they don't line up, they are all oriented correctly. Like, you're never going to make the bottom of each page is always going to be the grid. The top of each page is always going to be the picture. And even though that, you know, we might have March over November or whatever, it's still going to be oriented both facing the same direction, top to bottom. So if you find that something is not oriented that way, like if you have a photograph that's on the bottom facing up, well, you might have to figure out what you're doing wrong. But aside from that, it's pretty straightforward. The March grid. April and August. Sometimes I use a paper cutter for this, but my paper cutter is huge. It's covered with crap right now, so I'm just using an X-Acto knife. Look familiar? Spray the Super 77 over the trash can. Keep the dust to a minimum. You kind of get into a rhythm with this. Another page down. Alright. So you constantly check. See there's March, September, October, November, December. Beautiful. I try not to reuse the images too much, but sometimes I do. I don't really sweat it too much. It's this year has been really a bummer as far as getting out and taking pictures of station wagons and stuff. Because of the COVID and the economy and whatnot. You know, usually I try and do the Mopar show at Big Daddy Don Garlitz's Museum of Drag Racing the first weekend of November every year and get some cool photographs there. But this year I couldn't do it. Didn't want to make anybody sick. My crew and I drove down to Florida and painted my parents' house in March, just as the COVID was going down. And that was the last time I got to see my parents. But it sounds like it's going to get better. There's a vaccine. The July grid and the final countdown. And here's the June I was telling you about. June just in the middle, and it just stays the same. You don't have to do any fancy dancy with that. And then I'll just... Don't watch me get this one wrong. I always get something wrong. Angela is May, so May is at the top, so put this one like this, and we'll be good to go. Alright, final pieces of the puzzle. Got my credit page done. Same as last year. But I got the date right. It was created in 2020. It's a 2021 calendar. I've actually put the wrong year on the covers of calendars before, too. Just making sure. Bada bing, bada boom. There we are. Calendars in the books. All that's left to do now is bring it off to the copy shop, and we put a price tag on it, and we push it. I think that's it. Do a little more eraser work. If you want one of these calendars, I'll put all the pertinent information below this video. I don't know what I'm going to do a video of next week. If you have any requests, let me know. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll come up with something good. Till then, take it easy. Rubber side down.